Joining us now, you guys might recognize the dulcet tones. She was the governor of the great state of Arizona, the one, the only, the legend, Jan Brewer. Really?
Wow.
Pablo fails, good. Extra fail.
Wow.
Governor, how are you? We gave you a big one, but it doesn't matter because Pablo killed it.
Well, I thought it was wonderful. Hello, guys.
Hey, Sandra Day O'Connor, we were talking about her earlier. Barry's in for Gaydos today. She was the real trailblazer. She was a lot of the things that, we hear about with, when they talk about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the notorious RBG. The fact is, Sandra Day O'Connor was it.
She was it. She truly was the trailblazer, not only here in Arizona, but for our whole country. She opened the doors for so many people, and, of course, for women especially.
Talk about the women's side of things. Because Barry brought up the fact that in 1952, when she graduated top of the class, she couldn't even get a job out of Stanford.
Yeah, that's the story, and we all believe that, too, because that was 1952. But, she kept plugging away, and, she just Sandra Day O'Connor was a wonderful woman, and I had so much respect and admiration for her. But she had so much courage, and she was so determined, and she was just extraordinary at everything that she did, that she could just change the world. And she said to me at one time that everyone can make a difference, and that just stuck with me. And she really believed that everyone can make a difference. And if we look at it that way, everybody's got talent, and you just have to bring it forward. She was so encouraging, and to say that I knew her and to be able to call her my friend is somewhat humbling.
When did you work with her, Governor? When you were in the legislature, or how was your personal friendship?
No, she was in the legislature. I think her term ended in 80. I went in 83.
Okay, well, she was put on the court
in 81.
Yeah,
she was in 81.
Right, she was put on the court in 81. So, was she?
But of course. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Did Sandra Day O'Connor, did she think of herself as a trailblazer? Did she realize how important she was as the first female on the Supreme Court and what that did for women in the law?
I don't think so. She was so humble. She would have never thought that, I don't believe, She was just so ordinary. So extraordinary and ordinary. Does that go in the same sentence? I don't know.
It's all in the same word. It works.
She just, she worked so hard for what she believed in, and she never gave up. That determination was one of her best assets, and she fought so hard for the people of Arizona, especially for the United States. And when she retired and she started her civics education and turned her adobe house into a historic residence, she opened it up and would hold meetings there, public meetings, and invite people, small groups, and she did it often to talk about civics, but also about other issues that we wanted to bring to the table. And we would sit around, and everybody would just be a round table, and you would just talk about it. You just bring every good, bad, indifferent, agreed, disagreed, and it was always so civil, and you always felt so comfortable because it was her. She was hosting it, and it was just. She was an extraordinary woman. She truly was. It's a sad day for Arizona.
A tough day indeed. Talking to Arizona's former governor, the great governor of the great state of Arizona, Jan Brewer. The legend that it is, but you talk about her being a trailblazer. She trailblazed. Somebody like you becomes governor. I mean, you go back to when she came out of law school and went to work. The thought of many people that, women running things, governor, vice president, any of these things, that was not there. Why do you think she doesn't get the same kind of love that Ruth Bader Ginsburg gets from so many people?
I don't know that she doesn't. I mean, maybe I'm blind, but I just admire her so much. I think that everybody admires her on both sides of the aisle. I think women overwhelmingly admire her. I think that that's what I believe. Maybe you see it differently, but she was the trailblazer. I mean, even when I went to the legislature, when I ran in 1982, it was a man's world down there. We were sort of like, shut and be quiet and sit down. We had Burt Barr,
Those were the days, Governor.
Yeah, those were the days, all right, and it was the boys that ran the place unless you stood up. But even then, I mean, we've seen that change, and it was because of people like Sandra Day O'Connor and her particularly that Arizona really changed. I mean, we led the country. We had more women in our Arizona legislature in 1982 and 1983 than anywhere in the country, and it was because of Sandra Day O'Connor. I mean, she served there. She was one of us.
Right. That's amazing. Former Governor Jan Brewer with us here on KTAR. Governor, did you ever speak with Justice O'Connor after she retired and how that felt? I mean, she left for a Supreme Court justice. She retired very early. I know she was going to take care of her husband. But did she ever talk about if that was painful for her or difficult after the fact?
I don't recall her ever talking about being painful or anything. I mean, she was still active. When she was taking care of John, she was still pretty active. She was out there giving speeches, and she was doing her civic stuff and her house, and she was involved. I mean, just until the last few years, or maybe more than a few years, we haven't heard from her. But no, she was out there. She had an opinion, and she shared it. She loved life.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. Love and life, indeed. We love having you on, former governor of the great state of Arizona, Jan Brewer. We appreciate you coming on and sharing your thoughts about the loss of Sandra Day O'Connor today. Thanks so much, Governor. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Governor.
You betcha. Bye-bye.
Bye. Yeah, I mean, you think about it, 93, she lived a good life. But and my dispute is, if you ask a vast majority of human beings here wandering down the street, who is Ruth Bader Ginsburg, they'll tell you, oh, I know her. Who's Sandra Day O'Connor? People are like, is she an actress?
I think it's just more a fact of how long ago she retired, and Ruth Bader Ginsburg was more recent, so I think more people know her. But I think the governor might be right. I mean, Sandra Day O'Connor is absolutely recognized by anybody paying attention in the law to her importance. She was the first woman ever on the U.S. Supreme Court. That doesn't go away. She's the Jackie Robinson of that. Yeah. So she's always going to have that. And I think anybody in the law knows her legacy is.
Anybody in the law knows that, Barry. But if you ask people who broke the color barrier, most people will tell you Jackie Robinson, right? Even though you can go back and argue there were several other players way back in the day, like in the 1800s that did. But if you ask today who broke the barrier as far as the gender barrier in the Supreme Court, I think most people would say Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Well, you might be right. I mean, you're right. People are definitely more into what happened more recently, so that's true. I guess she needed some initials. They had to call her the Notorious SDO or something.
Ooh, the SDO.
She had to have a brand. She needed a brand.
Everybody needs a brand. That's what I've been saying.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching Gaydos and Chad. Click to watch more and tap the button in the middle to subscribe to KTAR News.